The rain fell hard that Monday morning in downtown Atlanta, turning sidewalks into shallow rivers. On the hospital's front steps, 13-year-old Elijah James stood barefoot, soaked to the bone. His oversized hoodie hung like a curtain around his thin frame, and his jeans were torn at both knees. Yet his eyes were focused, burning with purpose. Inside the pristine glass entrance of Crescent Mercy Hospital, doctors and nurses moved swiftly, attending to patients and whispering about impossible recoveries and medical failures. But none of them noticed Elijah until he pushed the door open. Security guards at the reception desk looked up, annoyed by the intrusion. "Kid, this ain't a shelter," one of them snapped. "I'm not here for a bed," Elijah said, his voice quiet but certain. "I'm here for her. I can wake her up." The guards blinked, confused. "Who?" Elijah pointed to the digital donor wall, where a picture of billionaire Robert Langston's daughter, Lily, was framed under the words, "In loving hope, Coma recovery wing. I need to see Lily Langston. Please. I can help her." ACT2, laughter in the halls. Dr. Karen Evers, lead neurologist at Crescent Mercy, was finishing her rounds when she heard about the soaked, scrappy boy who barged in claiming to cure coma patients. She rolled her eyes when a nurse relayed the message. "He says he can wake her up." Like he's some kind of magician, the nurse said, half laughing. "Let security handle it." "Poor kid probably needs food, not fantasies," Karen muttered, but something gnawed at her. That name. Elijah James. It felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. Downstairs, security tried to escort Elijah out, but he refused to move. "You don't understand. I know her. She used to visit the park near the bridge. I heard her humming. That's how I remember her. I know the sound that can reach her." A passing orderly chuckled. "Man, this ain't a fairy tale." But the receptionist, a Haitian immigrant named Mireille who had seen things she couldn't explain back home, looked at Elijah with narrowed eyes. "Let him speak to Dr. Langston," she said quietly. ACT3, a father's wall. Robert Langston, a titan in real estate and tech investment, hadn't smiled since Lily's accident. She'd slipped into a coma after a car crash, one where the drunk driver walked away without a scratch. Robert had poured millions into her care, bringing in specialists from around the world, all to no avail. When a nurse told him a barefoot homeless boy demanded to see his daughter, he was furious. "This is some PR stunt. A joke." Robert's voice thundered. But Mireille, with the kind of soft defiance that comes from faith, said, "No, sir. He says he knows the song that your daughter used to hum in the park. The one no one else knew." Robert froze. Only he and Lily knew that melody, an old jazz lullaby her late mother used to sing. He ordered Elijah brought to his private suite immediately. ACT4, the song Beyond Silence. Inside the room, machines beeped steadily. Lily Langston, pale and unmoving, looked more like porcelain than a child of 14. Elijah stepped forward, water still dripping from his clothes. "Do you really believe you can do something here?" Robert asked, voice breaking between skepticism and desperation. Elijah nodded. "She's not gone. She's just stuck. Like when I used to get lost in the tunnels under the city. I heard her humming when I was hiding from the cold." He approached Lily, gently took her hand, and whispered, "You used to sing by the bridge. Do you remember?" Then, from memory, he began to hum. It was off-key, raw, and quiet, but unmistakable. The jazz lullaby. The room held its breath. And then, her finger twitched. ACT5, proof that breaks the world. Nurses called for Dr. Evers, who rushed in thinking it was another equipment malfunction. But when she saw Lily's eyelids flutter and her heart rate spike, she staggered back. "It's impossible," she whispered. "We've tried everything, neurological stimulation, vocal triggers, physical therapy, nothing worked." Elijah stepped away. I didn't wake her. She heard something she knew. The moment went viral. Someone in the hallway had recorded the scene. Within hours, the internet exploded with headlines. Homeless boy sparks miracle in billionaire's coma daughter. But while the world watched in awe, Robert Langston sat quietly with Elijah in the hospital chapel. How did you know that song? My mom used to sing it. Before the fire. Elijah said softly. She said it was from a woman she met when she cleaned houses. Said it brought peace to her soul. Robert choked. My wife. ACT 6, Unraveling Threads of the Past. Elijah's mother, Nadine, had once worked as a housekeeper at the Langston estate. She'd been let go quietly, after a misunderstanding that Robert never looked into. Years later, her son returned unknowingly to the daughter of the woman she used to sing to. Karen Evers reviewed Elijah's story and medical history and found something stunning. Elijah exhibited signs of mirror empathy, a rare neurological phenomenon. His brain had imprinted frequencies and tones in ways science couldn't yet explain. He wasn't a healer. He was a mirror. And Lily had always been singing to someone. She just didn't know who. ACT 7, the home that was waiting. Robert Langston didn't send Elijah back to the streets. Instead, he made a decision that shocked the city. This boy is not a stranger, he said at a press conference. He's the thread that brought my daughter back. And from this day on, he is part of our family. Robert adopted Elijah officially. The media swarmed, some calling it performative charity, but those who met Elijah knew better. He wasn't interested in wealth. He asked for one thing: can we open a center? For kids like me, who hear things no one else listens to. So the Langston James Center for Healing Sound and Memory was born. ACT 8, Return to the Bridge. Months later, after Lily regained partial speech and memory, she returned to the bridge with Elijah. She looked out at the water and whispered, "You were there, weren't you?" "I was," Elijah said. "And you were singing to someone who needed to be found." They sat in silence, wind carrying their song. ACT 9, the final note. Years passed. Elijah became a researcher in neuroacoustic therapy, using music to reach coma patients. His work changed medical science. But he always began his speeches with the same words. "I'm not a genius. I was just cold and scared and heard someone singing." Sometimes the people the world throws away are the only ones listening. ACT 10, What happens next? Today, the Langston James Center has helped over 300 coma patients reconnect with loved ones using sound therapy and memory recall. The story of Elijah and Lily is taught in classrooms and sung by children in music halls. But Elijah still walks barefoot sometimes, in memory of the road that led him home. Because what happened wasn't just a miracle. It was proof that love, music, and faith can travel farther than even medicine dares to reach. And sometimes, the boy with nothing ends up waking the world. 10 years later, Elijah stood backstage at a global neuroscience symposium in Geneva. He was no longer the barefoot boy lost in the rain. Now 23, he wore a tailored black suit, though he still carried a small, worn cloth in his pocket, part of the hoodie he wore that fateful day. Lily Langston sat in the front row, smiling. She was now an art therapist, helping children express unspeakable trauma through painting and music. Her presence was a living testament to what began with a hum beneath a bridge. Elijah adjusted his mic. We often measure intelligence by logic, success by money, and healing by science, he began. But what if the most powerful breakthroughs come not from answers, but from listening? The room was still. I was a boy no one wanted to hear. But I heard someone singing. That sound didn't just bring me hope, it carried me to her. And in returning it, I brought her back. He paused. We don't need to be extraordinary to save lives. We need to be present. We need to remember that even in silence, there are echoes, songs waiting for someone to listen. Thunderous applause followed. Reporters rushed the stage, but Elijah walked straight to Lily. He didn't need attention. He just needed to know that she had found her voice again. Later that evening, the two sat on a rooftop overlooking the city. The stars were out. Lily turned to him. "Do you ever wonder if it was all fate?" Elijah smiled. "I think, it was a song waiting for the right ears. That's all." She took his hand. "Then let's make sure the world keeps listening." Below them, the city hummed, unaware that somewhere in the quiet, another child was listening, another miracle waiting to be heard. Weeks after Elijah's speech, the Langston James Center received hundreds of handwritten letters from across the globe. Parents of coma patients, children who'd once been silent, homeless teens who'd heard the story and found the courage to seek help. One letter read, "Dear Elijah, I'm 14. I sleep under the 5th Street Bridge in Pittsburgh. I heard your story. I'm not sure if anyone will care, but I used to hum too. I'm gonna try to find someone to hum back." Another came from an elderly woman. "My husband has been in a coma for 6 years. I stopped believing in miracles until I saw what you did. I played him our wedding song today." He smiled. The stories poured in. Some were miracles. Some were heartbreaks. But all were voices rising from the silence. Elijah created a public archive, a digital wall where people could post stories, sounds, and messages for loved ones lost in memory. It was called The Listening Tree. Lily painted a mural to accompany it, of children sitting beneath a golden-leaved tree, heads tilted upward, listening to birds, wind, and the heartbeat of the world. The project became global. Hospitals in Brazil, South Korea, Kenya, and Canada opened similar sound therapy programs. And every time a patient woke to a familiar song, they planted a tree in that patient's name. By Elijah's 30th birthday, there were more than 3,000 trees. Legacy, when the world finally listened. Elijah didn't seek fame. He turned down television deals, movie offers, and book contracts. But he wrote one book. Not a memoir, but a children's story. It was titled, The Boy Who Hummed at the Bridge. The book told the tale of a small boy who heard a song no one else could hear, and followed it into the heart of the city to find a sleeping girl who had forgotten how to dream. He hummed her awake. And together, they reminded the world that silence is never empty. It became a bestseller, not because of its writing, but because it was true. Teachers used it. Psychologists referenced it. And children read it to one another at night, with flashlights under covers, humming soft lullabies into the dark. Closing scene, the bridge, one last time. An old man walks beside the same Atlanta bridge. The city has changed, but the sound of traffic and river and wind remains. He stops at a small plaque embedded in the stone. It reads, "Here, a boy with no home heard a song, and followed it into history." Children nearby hum softly. Some know the story. Some only know that humming feels safe. Above them, the wind shifts. And someone listens. In the slums of Rio de Janeiro, a 10-year-old boy named Mateo scavenged copper from broken electronics. Every night, after selling scrap, he'd return to a shack he shared with his grandmother. But Mateo had a secret. He could hear electricity. Not just static or hums. He claimed he could hear sadness in broken wires. People laughed. Called him strange. But one day, while fixing an old radio, a signal came through. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a melody. The bridge hum. And it brought him to tears. He followed the sound online, tracked it to the Harmony Institute, and wrote one line in his application. "I can hear what hurts." ACT 29, the language of frequencies. When Mateo arrived at Harmony Institute, neurologists scanned his brain. The results were baffling. His auditory cortex lit up when he touched broken wires. He experienced emotion through frequency ranges below human hearing. Amaya sat with him during one session and played Elijah's original hum. Mateo whispered, "This one is about loneliness. But also light." The resonance children surrounded him. One by one, they played tones of their own pain. And Mateo translated them. Pain became shape. Fear became color. Hope became rhythm. ACT 30, the Song Wall. With Mateo's gift, the Institute built the Song Wall, a sound-responsive, color-shifting installation that could visualize emotional frequency. It became a sanctuary where anyone could come, hum, and see their feelings take form. People who hadn't spoken in years stood before it and watched their pain dance in light. Refugees hummed the memories of home. Children hummed the fear of war. Elderly patients hummed the voices of those long gone. And slowly, healing began again. Act 31, the attack on silence. But peace draws fire. A powerful biotech lobby, threatened by the rise of grassroots healing, labeled the Harmony Institute a cult. Funding was cut. Permits revoked. Borders tightened. News headlines read, "Children as Healers. Dangerous Pseudoscience or the Future of Medicine." Amaya was called to testify before the United Nations Committee on Ethical Science. She walked in holding Mateo's hand. And instead of a speech, they played a recording of 1,000 children humming. No one spoke for minutes. Then the chairman whispered, "Approved. Humanity needs this." ACT 32, the Return of Silence. Lily, now in her 40s, began to feel her mind slipping again. Memory blinks. Missed steps. Words lost mid-sentence. She called Amaya. "I don't want to forget Elijah." "You won't," Amaya promised. "Even if the words go, your heart remembers." Lily returned to the bridge. The tree still stood. Stronger than ever. She closed her eyes. She couldn't remember Elijah's face. But she could still hum. ACT 33, Mateo's gift. Mateo's ability evolved. He began teaching children to listen beyond what they heard. He showed them how sorrow had a vibration, how forgiveness had a pitch, how joy could hum so low it shook the earth. They didn't just become healers. They became listeners. A new role emerged in hospitals, schools, even prisons: emotional translators. Trained in frequency therapy, empathy, and Elijah's legacy. One patient described it best. "I spoke without speaking. And someone finally heard me." ACT 34, the day the world hummed. It started as a grassroots idea. July 11th, Elijah's birthday, was declared Global Listening Day. No speeches. No fireworks. Just one request. At 8 p.m. local time, everyone stop and hum. The result was surreal. From rooftops in Tokyo. To deserts in Sudan. To churches in Alabama. People hummed. Different tones. Different lives. But the same intent. To remind the world that no one is truly alone. ACT 35, the Echo Tree. In Kenya, a young girl planted a tree grown from a seed gifted by the Langston James Foundation. It was crossbred with the original tree by the bridge. She called it Mti Wasati, the tree of sound. The moment it bloomed, birds flocked to it. Not just for shade, but to sing. Every spring, its leaves vibrated softly in the wind. Almost like a hum. ACT 36, Amaya's farewell. Amaya, now in her 50s, walked with a cane. She had led for decades. Trained thousands. Held hands of the broken. One day, she stood at the bridge with her daughter, Elijah's godchild, and said, "I think it's time for me to listen now." Her daughter hummed. Amaya smiled. And for the first time in her life, she cried not from pain, but from peace. ACT 37, The Archives of Light. A floating library was launched in Elijah's honor, the Archives of Light, a traveling, solar-powered barge that docked in underserved communities. It carried no books. Only sound. Every whisper, every laugh, every cry ever submitted to the listening tree had been preserved. Visitors wore headphones and walked through rooms of emotion. Rooms of grief. Rooms of forgiveness. Rooms of rebirth. And in the center, Elijah's hum. Always playing. Always waiting. ACT 38, The Final Echo. In 2075, long after Elijah had passed, a young boy named Dave from Seoul stood before a UN panel. He was born deaf. But using vibration recognition, based on Elijah's resonance theories, he had written symphonies. Not with sound, but with feeling. And his final piece was titled Bridge of Voices. When it played, the room vibrated. He signed to the audience. Even if I never heard Elijah, I felt him. He didn't give us music. He gave us the courage to feel again. ACT 39, One Last Song. In a quiet corner of the Atlanta Bridge, an old street performer, who many claim is just a myth, sits and hums every morning. No one knows his name. But every time someone stops to listen, they leave feeling whole. ACT 40, The Frequency of Hope. Science once asked, can sound heal the human body? But Elijah answered a better question. Can listening heal the human soul? And across the world, in homes, clinics, battlefields, and birthing rooms, the hum continues. Not as medicine. Not as miracle. But as memory. And memory, when sung with love, never fades.